We need resilient communities. We need resilient people. Only when people and communities are resilient can nations be more peaceful, stable, and prosperous.
Mother, you're right when you say money is often needed to achieve peace, and that is something we'll also be aiming for. Believe me when I tell you the Africa Resilience Forum will be the perfect place to strengthen partnerships, to come up with new ideas on how to stop conflict and fragility in our land, and to attract investments for the most vulnerable and conflict-affected areas. My dear mother, by working together, we will reinforce important coalitions, and you know how huge things can be accomplished when Africans join forces. We're determined to innovate and create new policy proposals to face some of the major problems you and I know so well. I am confident that my generation is ready to lead the way towards a peaceful, safe, prosperous, and resilient Africa.
It fills me with joy to see our people coming together for something so important for our future. I'm very proud of you, my beloved son. May peace and prosperity finally find our way.
So I will now invite our Vice President, Marilo Akin-Olugbade, to deliver the opening remarks for the ARF 2023.
Merci beaucoup, Yero.
Thank you very much, Yero. Honorable Ministers, distinguished members of the Board of Directors of the African Development Bank, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Diplomatic Corps accredited to Cote d'Ivoire, partners of the African Development Bank Group, and all the members of transition countries, good morning. On behalf of the President of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, I am delighted to be welcoming you warmly and to know that you're here either in person or virtually during this fifth edition of the Africa Resilience Forum for 2023. We know the commitment of the stakeholders, as both in Africa and beyond, their commitment towards discussing the crucial theme of financing security, peace, and development over the next 3 days. Your presence and your participation bears testimony to your commitment, or to the commitment of the various actors to collaborate on this crucial issue. I would like to thank very heartily all the government representatives, the representatives of organizations and institutions that are here with us today. We are here to brainstorm on the challenges raised by growing insecurity and violence that we have been witness to recently. However, our main objective is to come up with concrete solutions together. And together, we will look for common approaches to direct the financing of development, humanitarian aid, and supporting the consolidation of peace in a bid to reverse this trend. The extraordinary circumstances call for exceptional solutions, and this is what we're devoting our efforts at. We're trying to create an alliance for peace, security, and development. Together, we are going to explore the existing approaches as well as emerging approaches in a bid to strengthen resource mobilization and the financing of peace-positive initiatives on the continent. We will also try to envisage collaboration between the private and the public sectors, as well as with the civil society, because we are convinced that new partnerships and local solutions are possible for us to achieve. Distinguished participants, the close link between the nexus between peace, security, and development is even more obvious today than ever before. And in this respect, it's important to recall that peace is a world public will. Prosperity on the continent will without peace and security, development will never be within our reach. It's therefore important for us to coalesce our efforts in order to promote peace, security, and development within our respective communities by adopting an approach that is geared towards conflict prevention. We can reduce and even eliminate conflicts that hamstring and even eliminate development efforts. None of our institutions can alone preserve peace and foster resilience. However, by acting together, we can really make a difference. The efficiency of our coordination and of our collaboration will determine the sustainability and the scope of our impact on peace, security, and development. As humanitarian actors and stakeholders in development and peace, we have to put persons and the communities that we serve at the heart of our partnerships and of our collaborative efforts. Their leadership, their ownership, and their participation, their active participation, are crucial and will be critical in guaranteeing the sustainability of our efforts, because where there is peace, everybody leverages it or enjoys it. So the momentum that forms a nexus between peace, development, and security will continue to take all our efforts. The co-organizers of the Africa Resilience Forum Edition 2023 are amongst many partners with whom we collaborate in order to maximize the impact of development financing on peace and security in Africa. I would like to underscore the key role played by the African Union, by regional economic communities, as well as by our regional and non-regional member countries in promoting contextual solutions that we're going to explore in the course of this forum. And for this edition of the Financing Security, Peace and Development, we have joined the ASWAN Forum, the World Economic Forum, with Interpeace, OECD, Interpeace, United States Initiative for Peace, as well as our member countries, to speed up the transformation of knowledge into policies, transform them into policies and into concrete practice. To conclude, I would like to wish all of you constructive and fruitful discussions during this historical forum. And let's together seize this opportunity to become the visionaries of a peaceful and prosperous future under the leadership of bold Africans. We are bringing to concrete expression this vision with your participation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, VP Marilo, especially for putting emphasis on the humanitarian development peace nexus, but also putting prevention at the center of our respective intervention strategies, but also collaborating for impactful, innovative financing for peace, security, and development in Africa. Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished participants, we know that peace and prosperity go hand in hand, but conflict and violence do continue to grow. That's the reality also. So this next video will introduce to us a possible solution, which is what underpins the theme of this forum. This is about peace finance.
Então, eu cresci vida de tentar fazer negócio. Eu estive me senti feliz quando estive lá porque fazia negócio. Não vou conseguir esquecer. Para mim foi muito difícil porque nunca pensava, né, na minha vida que deveria viver aquela vida.
When conflict broke out in northern Mozambique, just like Batina, hundreds of thousands of people fled and lost their livelihoods.
So today, 85% of Africa's population lives in a conflict-affected country or in a neighboring country. And this is where we see a large concentration of the poverty.
Peace, security, and prosperity go hand in hand. When the conditions for peace are lacking, violence and instability raise their head, resulting in a lack of prosperity. When that happens, investments cannot find their way to places of great need and opportunity. Because of the risks, real or perceived, too many fragile contexts cannot be reached by capital markets and direct investments. This leads to a vicious cycle of conflict and underdevelopment.
So peace finance is all about trying to work with development finance actors and private investors so they make positive contributions to peace outcomes.
We expect all the companies to be part of the solution. That's why we want them to invest. Being part of the solution is to prevent conflicts from happening. It's doing good for the people and not harm the people.
The African Development Bank recognized that there cannot be development without peace, just as there is no peace without development.
We know the sustainable green investment space is now about $1.6 trillion a year of issuance. If we could capture just 1% of that sustainable issuance, we'd more than double the global spending towards peace building.
We are joining forces to ensure that investment reach some of these areas and complement, of course, the efforts and all that we are doing. We are pioneering what we call the Security Index Investment Bond Initiative, which is an innovative way of looking at the nexus between peace, security, development. So for us, this is a concrete way to really contribute to this new thinking that we all must integrate in all that we do. We need to be more peace and security conscious in everything that we do. And it is not just left to other actors, even us as the body of the international financial institution have a role to play.
We've come to the climax of the opening ceremony. It will be a keynote address by Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the President of the African Development Bank, who under his leadership has made sure that all bank programming and operations are sensitive to fragility and conflict, with the simple determination, with the simple intention that no country or no individual will be left behind in Africa's prosperity.
Distinguished guests, fellow leaders, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to address you as we open this 5th edition of the Africa Resilience Forum. In a world of simultaneous complex challenges and rapid global changes, the place and role of policymakers, investors, and professionals working at the humanitarian development, peace, and security nexus has never been more critical. Financing peace, security, and development for a prosperous and resilient Africa could not have been a more relevant and timelier theme, given the increasing number of conflicts and violence globally and in Africa. In 2009, there were approximately 3,000 reported conflict incidents across the continent. Fast forward that 13 years later to 2022, the number of conflicts has increased almost 8-fold to more than 23,000. The conflicts inflict a heavy toll on human lives and result in the displacement of vulnerable populations. In such an environment, it is no surprise that the number of refugees and internally displaced persons on the continent has unfortunately steadily increased since the 2000s. In 2022, the figure stands at 34.8 million people. The consequences have been devastating. Conflict remains the main driver of humanitarian need, food insecurity, and malnutrition. As such, peace and security are vital to unlock the conditions for long-term development and creation of collective wealth. As a result, African countries have increased their security expenditures, which stood at an estimated $40 billion in 2021, an increase of 7% from 2018. The increase in security expenditure diverts scarce resources from social and economic development. Now, at a time when countries are struggling to service burgeoning debt burdens, dealing with pandemics, and adapting to the impacts of climate change. Rising insecurity deters investment, which is needed for growth and development. It also creates the risk of spillovers, as we are witnessing in the Sahel region. I look at the dynamics behind these conflicts through what I call the prism of a disaster triangle: rural poverty, youth unemployment, and environmental degradation. Now, this presents structural vulnerabilities that threaten human security and create a conducive environment for conflict. To break free from this landscape-altering disaster triangle, investing in and building resilience is crucial. Now, every dollar invested in prevention saves $16 in humanitarian and reconstruction spending required in the aftermath of conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, we must scale up our efforts to tackle the challenges of insecurity and build a more resilient and peaceful continent. The African Development Bank has long been committed to making a difference in this regard. Our 2022 strategy for addressing fragility and building resilience reflects our experience and expertise in this area. We understand that a commitment to peace needs new partnerships, approaches, and funding mechanisms. That is why the African Development Bank, the African Union, and Africa's regional economic communities are jointly developing a new initiative called Security Indexed Investment Bonds. This unique initiative, endorsed at the African Union Heads of State Summit in February of 2022, will be the first vehicle to raise financing at scale, including through capital markets, to finance interventions at the security, investment, growth, and development nexus. Today, ladies and gentlemen, 85% of Africans live in or close to a country in conflict. The Security Index Investment Bonds initiative will allow for the deployment of resources through holistic investment strategies that combine peace building, security, and development expertise. It will help offset the fiscal implications of elevated security sector spending. Now, the revenue streams from security index investment bonds can be used to do four things. The first, reinforce the security architecture of African countries and support dual-purpose infrastructure to enhance national and regional peacekeeping and security capabilities. Second, rebuild destroyed or damaged infrastructure in conflict-affected areas and finance new investment projects to relaunch economic activities and create jobs in areas prone to security challenges. Third, build social infrastructure for the populations, especially water, sanitation, schools, health, roads, ICT, and agricultural infrastructure. to improve access to basic services, to support community livelihoods in fragile environments, and of course the fourth, to protect strategic investments within countries or regions. The Security Index investment bonds can be delivered through special purpose vehicles established on behalf of a pool of regional member countries. The bonds can be credit enhanced by the African Development Bank and other donors. The administration of the bond proceeds can be managed under the auspices of the African Union's Peace and Security Council and regional economic communities. The initiative will leverage the private sector to deliver a commercially viable and sustainable vehicle that invests with a peace and security impact. It will tap into traditional humanitarian, peace building, and climate grants to increase resources available for investments that contribute to peace on the African continent. The overarching objective is to secure funding in the range of $5 to $10 billion for peace and security investments by 2030. Security Index investment bonds are new ways of lowering risks for both communities and investors and ensuring greater effectiveness. Embedding peace and security impacts into our approaches will show investors and the wider private sector that it is both the right thing to do and it is critical for lowering risk and providing long-term investment certainty. I want to invite all of you to collaborate with us at the African Development Bank in this effort. We must collectively reverse current trends and build an alliance of partners for a new approach to peace investment. This will truly change the development, peace, security paradigm on our continent. And of course, a key part of financing peace, security, and development on the continent is the urgent need to focus on youth, women, and climate change responses, and of course, private sector engagement. The African Development Bank has been working and has already developed dedicated strategies and financing instruments to accelerate progress in these critical areas. That is why the African Development Bank is currently setting up what we call Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks. These banks will provide an enabling ecosystem of financial and technical support for businesses run by young entrepreneurs across Africa. Now, we must provide our young people with hope for a better future. I am therefore very delighted that our board of directors approved $16 million for the Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Bank of Liberia, the first in a series of such banks that we hope to help establish in several countries. In the same vein, the African Development Bank's Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, it's a program we call AFAWA, that's the acronym, supports women in starting and growing their businesses. I am absolutely delighted that this year, AFAWA has so far delivered over $1.2 billion in financing for businesses of women across several countries. We expect to reach $1.5 billion by the end of this year, well on track to meeting our $5 billion financing target for businesses of women. And as well, our climate action window of $429 million under the African Development Fund provides critical resources for low-income countries which experience fragility and vulnerability to adapt to the effects of climate change. It will help to deliver access to climate information for 20 million farmers, provide crop and livestock insurance for 20 million people, and revamp over 1 million hectares of degraded lands and of course provide renewable energy for over 9 million people. These investments will help to build more prosperous and resilient communities. Ladies and gentlemen, the Africa Resilience Forum is a call to action to work together and move from policy dialogue to investment, and from investment to impact. Building resilience in Africa is a huge task. It is like the baobab tree that you find in our communities. Put your hands around it alone. You cannot, because it's just so big. But when you join hands together with others, our collective hands can wrap around the baobab tree. So, we meet today for this Resilience Forum, and as we do, let us join hands together and deploy this baobab partnership approach. Together, we will achieve amazing things. Welcome once again, and thank you very much for joining us in this endeavor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I will not even attempt to summarize, but then I'm going to dilute what he said. So we just go with what he has said. But just to say that he's laid out, what he thinks and what we have seen in our research, in our analysis, together with most of you, what the root causes of fragility are in this continent and the causes of the conflicts that we see. But he also laid out the initiatives that the bank is having in terms of trying to address it. The Security Index Investment Bonds, Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks, AFAWA, and the Climate Action Window, just to name a few. Over the next 3 days, we'll be able to discuss more and go into depth how we can collaborate with each and every one of you in making sure that we have impactful investments coming from these initiatives on the ground. Thank you very much. So now this comes to the end of the opening session.